The station market was always loud, filled with voices, trades, and the smell of strange foods. Merchants shouted about rare crystals, spices from burning worlds, and machines older than memory. But when she walked through the market, the noise slowly faded. The alien widow, her head covered with a dark cloth, carried a small basket with nothing inside. Her steps were slow, her eyes tired, and her hands weak. No one wanted to look at her, yet everyone whispered about her. "She is cursed," one alien muttered while pulling his child closer. "She brings bad luck," another hissed as he turned away. Her mate had died in the Great War, leaving her with nothing but a child and a name others feared. Now no clan claimed her, no neighbor spoke to her, and no one bought the little things she tried to sell. She was alone in a crowd that hated her. The widow lowered her head, pretending not to hear, but every word cut like a blade. Her child, a small one with bright, curious eyes, held her hand tightly. "Mother, why do they hate us?" the child asked softly. She smiled weakly, forcing hope into her voice. "They are blind, my little star. We will be fine," she whispered, though her heart trembled. The truth was heavy. No one would help them. No one cared if they lived or starved. Every day was survival. Every breath a battle against shame and hunger. She reached her small stall, a broken table at the corner of the market. On it she placed trinkets made from old metal scraps, shaped into tiny birds and stars. Her late mate had taught her to make them, and she tried to keep the craft alive. But no one ever stopped. No one ever asked the price. The trinkets lay in silence, just like her life, unwanted and forgotten. Today, however, something was different. As she sat behind her stall, trying not to notice the cold stares, she felt eyes on her. Not the usual cruel stares, not the mocking whispers, but something else. She looked up, and there he was, a human standing a few steps away, watching her with calm, steady eyes. Humans were rare in this part of the galaxy. Most aliens did not trust them, and many feared their strange bravery, but this one looked different, not proud, not arrogant, only curious and thoughtful. He did not turn away when others whispered. He did not laugh when someone spat near her stall. Instead, he walked closer, his boots firm on the metal ground. The widow felt her chest tighten, unsure if this was danger or salvation. The human stopped at her stall and looked at the small trinkets. His hand touched one of the metal birds gently, as if it was a treasure. "These are beautiful," he said in simple words, his voice steady and kind. The widow blinked, shocked. No one had ever called her work beautiful. She tried to speak, but her voice was dry. "Thank you," she whispered, almost afraid of being heard. Then, without asking the price, he placed credits on the table. Gasps filled the air. Aliens nearby turned to look, their eyes wide with shock. "Why is he giving her money?" Someone whispered. "She is cursed. He will regret this," another said. But the human ignored them all, his attention only on the widow and her child. "What is your name?" he asked. The widow hesitated, fear burning in her chest, but something in his voice made her answer. "My name is Sariel," she said quietly. "And this is my child," she added, pulling the little one closer. The child hid behind her, but peeked at the human with wide eyes. The human gave a small smile. "My name is Daniel," he said. "You are not alone," he added softly, so only she could hear. The words hit her like a shock. Not alone. She had heard only hate for so long. Those two words felt like a spark of fire in the dark. But not everyone was pleased. From the shadows of the market, a pair of cold eyes watched them. A figure hidden in a dark cloak leaned against a wall, his mouth twisted into a cruel smile. "So, a human chooses the widow," he whispered to himself. "This will not be allowed." Sariel did not notice. She was still staring at the credits on her table, still feeling the warmth of Daniel's words in her heart. For the first time in years, she felt a small light inside her. She did not know that light would soon turn into fire. She did not know her life had just changed forever. The market had not forgotten what happened. Whispers grew like fire, spreading from stall to stall. A human gave her credits, they said, their voices sharp with anger and fear. He touched her trinkets, some hissed. He spoke to her child. Everywhere Sariel walked that day, eyes burned into her back. But by her side, Daniel the human walked without fear. The widow had never stood with anyone before. Now she was not alone, and it made others furious. Merchants spat near their path. Guards frowned but did nothing. Children pointed and laughed, repeating cruel words their parents had taught them. Sariel wanted to run, to hide her child. But Daniel's voice was calm. Keep walking, he said. They cannot harm you while I am here. There was something strange about his presence, not just the strength in his steps or the sharpness in his eyes. It was the way he looked at her as if she mattered, as if her life was not a burden but a story worth protecting. Her heart, frozen for so long, did not know how to feel. Was this safety? Or was it just another dream that would break? At the edge of the market, Serial stopped. This is dangerous, she whispered, her hands trembling. They hate me, they hate my blood. If you stand with me, they will hate you too. Daniel looked at her, his jaw firm, his eyes steady. Then let them hate, he said. Their hate is nothing compared to your child's smile. Serial turned her face away, but tears burned her eyes. The child, small and bright, tugged at Daniel's sleeve. You are not afraid? The little one asked. Voice soft but curious, Daniel knelt down, meeting the child's gaze without hesitation. I have seen war, I have seen death, he said. Fear is not stronger than kindness. The child tilted their head, as if weighing the words, then gave a tiny nod, a silent agreement that meant more than any speech. But in the crowd, danger was already growing. The cloaked figure from before watched from a distance. His hands touched the comm on his wrist, sending a silent signal. All units, he whispered. The human is protecting the widow, prepare to act. His voice was like poison carried on the wind, and soon, shadows began to move in the underlevels of the station. Daniel did not notice them yet, but his instincts stirred. Years of surviving battles had sharpened him to every small change. The way merchants closed their stalls too quickly, the way guards looked away. The market was not just watching anymore, it was waiting for something sharp, something deadly. Daniel placed his hand near his belt, not on a weapon, but ready. Serial saw his tension and fear rushed through her. They will not stop, she said, her voice low. They want me gone. They always have, Daniel shook his head, his voice strong and clear. Listen to me, Serial. You and your child are not going anywhere without me. Her lips parted, shocked by his certainty. No alien wanted you, but I do. I will not turn away. The words felt heavy, not like empty promises, but like iron. Serial had heard lies before, kindness that turned into cruelty, but this felt different. For the first time she saw not pity in someone's eyes, but respect. For the first time she felt not shame, but strength standing beside another. The child clutched her hand tighter, whispering, He is not like them. A sudden crash broke the fragile moment. One of her trinkets smashed against the ground, thrown by a passing alien. Leave this place, cursed widow, the alien shouted. The crowd murmured, some laughed. Others waited for Daniel's reaction. He stepped forward, his voice cutting through the noise like a blade. Touch her again and you will answer to me. The alien froze. Stunned by the human's tone, Daniel did not raise a weapon, yet his words carried the weight of steel. The silence that followed was deep, heavy, filled with unspoken challenge. Then the alien spat and walked away, dragging his shame behind him, but Serial knew it was not over. This was only the beginning that night. In the dim light of her small shelter, Serial sat with her child. The credits from Daniel lay on the table, glowing faintly. Her hands shook as she held one of the trinkets, the little bird of metal. Why him? She whispered, more to herself than anyone. The child leaned against her, sleepy but smiling. Because he sees us, the child said, and he does not look away. In the shadows outside, the cloaked figure watched once more. His voice was a whisper to the dark. The human has chosen the widow. The council will not forgive this, he turned, disappearing into the endless maze of the station, plans already forming, blades already being sharpened. The storm was coming, and Serial had no idea how close it was, but inside, as she held her child close, Serial's heart carried something new, a small light, a fragile hope, born from the words of a human who refused to walk away. She did not yet know that this promise would change her destiny. She did not yet know it would change the fate of worlds. All she knew was this. Daniel's voice still echoed in her heart. You are not alone. The space station never truly slept. Even in the darkest cycle, machines hummed, vents hissed, and lights flickered across endless corridors. But in the underlevels, far from the shining market, another kind of life stirred. Shadows gathered in a hidden chamber. Cloaks drawn, eyes burning with quiet hatred. The cloaked figure who had followed Serial now stood before a council of alien leaders, their faces twisted with anger as he spoke. The human protects the widow, he said. his voice sharp like a blade. He speaks to her child. He defies the law of silence we placed on her bloodline. The chamber rumbled with whispers. One elder slammed his clawed hand on the table. This cannot be allowed, he growled. Her mate once fought against us. His rebellion almost broke our rule. Now she lives, another added. If the human keeps her safe, her bloodline will rise again. They leaned forward, eyes glowing in the dark. Then she must die, one hissed. The words hung heavy in the air, sharp and final. The cloaked figure bowed his head, a cruel smile twisting beneath his hood. It will be done, he promised. The council nodded, satisfied. The order had been given. The hunt had begun far above, in the quiet corner of the station. Serial tried to find rest. Her child slept beside her, clutching the small metal bird Daniel had bought. The trinket glowed faintly in the soft light, but Serial's heart was restless. The memory of Daniel's words replayed again and again. You are not alone. It was hope, but hope was dangerous. She had lived long enough to know that happiness often drew enemies. A sudden knock at the door made her freeze. Her breath caught, her body stiffened. Before she could move, the door slid open with a hiss. Daniel stepped inside, his expression serious. You are awake, he said quietly. Serial nodded, rising quickly. What is it? She asked, fear already tightening her chest. Daniel looked around the small room, checking every corner, every shadow. We are being watched, he said. Serial's blood turned cold. Who? She whispered. Daniel shook his head. Too many eyes, too many whispers, I don't know yet. But they do not want you alive. Her knees weakened, but his hand caught her arm, steady and strong. I will not let them take you, he said firmly. Serial searched his face, looking for lies, but found none. Only steel, only truth. The child stirred, blinking sleepily. What's wrong? The little one asked. Daniel knelt beside the child, his voice softer now. Bad people want to hurt your mother, but I will keep you both safe. The child nodded bravely, though fear flickered in their eyes. Serial's heart twisted. Her child had seen too much fear already, and yet this human was teaching them courage. Hours later, the attack came. The first sign was silence. The usual hum of the station faded. Lights flickered and the air felt heavy. Then came the sound of boots, many boots. Marching through the corridor, Daniel's eyes narrowed, his hand tightening around a metal bar he had picked up earlier. Stay behind me, he ordered. Serial pulled her child close, her chest pounding. The door burst open, shadows flooding the room, figures in dark armor, their eyes burning red. Weapons raised, one shouted, By order of the council. The widow is condemned, Serial gasped. Her child cried out, but Daniel stepped forward, blocking the way. Then you'll have to go through me, he said. His voice like iron, the attackers hesitated. Not expecting such defiance, a human unarmed. Standing against soldiers, this was madness. But Daniel moved first, swinging the metal bar with fierce strength. The first soldier fell, sparks flying as armor cracked. The room exploded into chaos, shouts, crashes, the sound of struggle. Serial grabbed her child and crouched low, fear and hope colliding in her chest. Daniel fought like a storm. Every strike was fast, every movement sharp. But there were too many. One soldier lunged, another swung, and soon Daniel was bleeding. Still he did not fall. Still he stood for her. For the child, run, he shouted. But Serial could not move. Her heart screamed, torn between fear and loyalty. No, she whispered, I will not leave you. The child clung to her tightly, tears streaming down their face. Mother, please. Then came the explosion. A blast shook the entire chamber, fire and smoke flooding in. The attackers stumbled, confused. Daniel grabbed Serial's arm, pulling her toward the back door. We move now, he said, coughing through the smoke. There was no time to argue. No time to think. They ran, hearts pounding, shadows chasing behind, far away. In the council chamber, the elders received the report. The cloaked figure bowed low. They escaped, he admitted. His voice tight with rage, the council hissed in anger. Then hunt them down, one ordered. They cannot leave the station alive, another declared. The cloaked figure nodded. They will not, he said, his eyes glowing with cruel promise. This human thinks he can protect her, but he has no idea of the storm he has stepped into. Back in the tunnels, Serial, her child, and Daniel stumbled through smoke and darkness. Every step was heavy, every breath a battle. Serial looked at the human beside her, his face smeared with blood, his hands raw from the fight. Why, she thought. Why risk so much for me, a widow no one wanted? But the answer was already there, shining in his eyes because he chose to. Because where Alien saw a curse, he saw a life worth saving. And though fear still clawed at her chest for the first time, Serial believed it. Perhaps the human really could protect her. Perhaps his promise was not empty, but hope was dangerous. And the storm was only just beginning. The tunnels of the station were endless. Dark pipes hissed with steam, shadows moved across dripping walls, and every sound echoed like a warning. Serial held her child close as they ran, her heart racing with fear. Behind them, the boots of soldiers pounded like thunder. The council's hunters were not giving up. They would chase her until either she was dead or they were. Daniel led the way, his body bruised and bleeding, but his steps never slowed. His eyes searched the dark corners, always looking for a path, always searching for a way out. He knew these soldiers, they would not stop. They would hunt until the last breath left their bodies. But he also knew something they did not. He had been hunted before, and he had survived. And tonight he would survive again. Serial stumbled as the ground shook from another explosion. Dust fell from the ceiling. Sparks burst from broken wires, the child cried, clutching her hand tightly. "Mother, I am scared," the little one whispered. Serial's voice trembled as she tried to comfort them. "I know, my star, but hold on, we will not fall." "Not tonight." Daniel stopped at a junction, breathing hard. "Which way?" Serial asked quickly, her voice almost breaking. Daniel closed his eyes for a moment, listening. From the left came the heavy sound of boots. From the right came silence. He nodded sharply. "This way," he said, pulling them into the darkness, but silence did not mean safety. As they turned the corner, red lights flashed ahead. The door at the end of the corridor locked with a hiss, a trap. The sound of metal scraping filled the air as hidden panels slid open. Soldiers stepped out, weapons raised. Eyes burning, Serial gasped, holding her child close. Daniel stepped in front of them, raising the same metal bar he had carried before. The soldiers laughed. "A human with a stick," one sneered. "Do you think you can stand against us?" Daniel did not answer, his eyes hard as stone. The first soldier lunged and Daniel moved like lightning. The bar struck, sparks flew, armor cracked. The soldier dropped to the ground, groaning. The others attacked. Shouting in anger, Daniel fought like fire, every strike strong, every move desperate but sharp. But there were too many. One soldier struck his back. Another slashed across his arm. Blood dripped, his body weakened, yet he still stood. Serial's heart twisted with pain. She wanted to scream, to fight. But she was only one against an army. Her child clung to her tighter, whispering, "Do not let him fall, mother." Then with a roar, Daniel grabbed one soldier and slammed him into the control panel. Sparks exploded, alarm screamed, the locked door hissed open. "Run!" Daniel shouted, his voice breaking through the chaos. Serial did not think. She grabbed her child and ran through the open door. Daniel followed, stumbling but refusing to fall behind them. The corridor filled with smoke and sparks, slowing the soldiers for a moment. The tunnels grew narrower, the air thicker. Finally, they reached a docking bay. Old ships rested in the shadows, dust covering their broken shells. Most were useless, nothing but scrap. But Daniel's eyes caught one, an old freighter, scarred but still whole. "This one," he said, rushing forward. Serial hesitated, her voice weak. "It will not fly," she whispered. Daniel looked back at her, his face pale but determined. "It has to." They climbed aboard. The child holding tight to Serial's cloak. The freighter's inside was dark, wires hanging loose, panels broken. Daniel sat at the controls, his hands moving quickly, systems coughed to life. Lights flickered, engines groaned. The ship shook as if waking from a long sleep. Serial sat beside him, holding her child, her heart pounding. "Will it work?" she asked. Daniel smiled faintly, blood still dripping from his wounds. "It will if we believe it can." Outside, the hunters arrived, filling the docking bay. Weapons raised, voices shouting, the freighter's engines roared, fire spitting from broken vents. "Stop them!" The commander screamed. Bolts of energy blasted against the ship's hull, shaking it hard. The child cried out, hiding against Serial's chest. Daniel gritted his teeth, pulling the controls. The freighter groaned, lifting slowly from the ground. For a moment it seemed it would fall. But then with a scream of engines it rose. The docking bay doors tried to close, metal grinding shut, but Daniel slammed the thrusters, pushing the freighter forward. The ship scraped through, sparks flying, hull screaming, and then, suddenly they were in space. Endless stars stretched before them, black and bright. The hunter's ships turned to follow, but the freighter was already gone, vanishing into the dark, carrying its 3 souls far from the station. Inside the freighter, silence fell. Sariel held her child tightly, tears running down her face. Daniel leaned back, exhausted, his body shaking from blood loss, but his eyes still burned with fire. "We are free," he whispered. Sariel looked at him, her voice breaking. "Why do you do this for me?" she asked. Daniel smiled faintly, though his body trembled. "Because you deserve more than chains," he said. "And because your child deserves to grow without fear." Sariel's heart broke and healed all at once. She had never heard such words from anyone. No alien wanted her, no clan claimed her. But this one human fought for her as if her life mattered more than his own. She reached out, touching his hand gently. "Then I will believe," she whispered. And for the first time in years, she truly meant it. Far away, in the council chamber, the elders raged. "The widow has escaped." One roared, "With the human." Another spat. The cloaked figure bowed low, but his eyes glittered with promise. "They will not run forever," he said. "The galaxy is wide, but there is no place they can hide from us." And so the chase had begun. The widow, her child, and the human now carried their fragile hope into the endless stars. But in the darkness behind them, enemies hunted with claws and fire. The escape was only the first step. The real war was still waiting. The old freighter drifted through the silent sea of stars. Its engines coughed and rattled, but it kept moving. Inside the cabin, the lights flickered weakly, painting shadows across tired faces. Sariel sat with her child, holding them close. While Daniel checked the controls, the human's body was wounded, his arm wrapped in cloth torn from his own shirt. Still, his eyes burned with the same fire as before, steady and unbroken. For the first time in years, Sariel felt space between herself and her hunters. The noise of the market was gone, the cruel whispers silent. But silence brought something else, memories she had tried to bury. She looked at the child's sleeping face, then at Daniel. Her voice was soft, heavy with things unsaid. "There is something you must know," she whispered. Daniel turned, his brow furrowed. "What is it?" he asked, his tone calm but sharp. Sariel's hands trembled as she pulled a small piece of cloth from her satchel. It was old, torn, and marked with a strange symbol, 2 stars crossing over a flame. Daniel stared at it, his eyes narrowing. "What does it mean?" he asked. Sariel took a deep breath, her voice shaking. "My mate was not only a soldier. He was a leader," she said. "He carried this symbol into battle, the mark of the Star Rebellion." Daniel's eyes widened, the name heavy with history. "I've heard of them," he said slowly. "They almost brought the council to its knees." Sariel nodded, her eyes dark with memory. "They wanted freedom. They wanted justice for the clans that suffered under the council," she said. "My mate believed the galaxy could be more than chains and fear. He died for that dream." Her voice cracked, but she pressed on. "And now they hunt me, because of what I carry." Daniel looked at her closely, his voice low. "What do you carry?" he asked. Sariel touched her chest, her heart pounding. "Not a weapon, not a map," she whispered, "but blood, my blood, and the blood of my child." The rebellion believed that one day our line could unite the scattered clans. They believed our child could be the key. Daniel's eyes hardened, understanding dawning. "So the council hunts you not because of what you've done, but because of what you could become," he said. Sariel nodded, tears slipping down her cheeks. "They fear us not because of curses, but because of hope." Her voice trembled. "And hope is more dangerous to them than any weapon." The ship creaked as if to echo her words. Daniel leaned back, his jaw set, his voice steady. "Then they were right to fear, because I will not let them take that hope from you." Sariel's breath caught, her chest tightening. "No alien ever said those words to me," she whispered. Daniel gave a faint smile. "Then it is time a human did." But hope carried its own shadow. As the freighter moved through the black, a red light began to flash on the console. Daniel frowned, checking the screen. A message pulsed across it, sharp and cruel. "Surrender the widow or die." The words burned into the silence. Sariel gasped, clutching her child closer. "They found us," she whispered, her voice filled with dread. Daniel's hands tightened on the controls. "They tracked the ship," he muttered. The message blinked again, this time followed by coordinates. Enemy ships were waiting ahead. Like wolves in the dark, Sariel's heart sank. "There is no way out," she whispered. But Daniel shook his head, his eyes like stone. "There is always a way," he said. The child stirred, opening their small eyes. "Mother, what is wrong?" they asked sleepily. Serial forced a smile, brushing their hair gently. "Nothing, my star." "Go back to sleep," she whispered, though her hands shook. The child looked at Daniel instead, their voice small but brave. "Will you keep us safe?" Daniel's reply was simple. "Yes," he said. Without hesitation, the child nodded, their trust absolute. And in that trust, Daniel found new strength outside. Stars shifted as enemy signals grew closer. The freighter rattled, the old metal groaning under the stress. Serial closed her eyes, fear burning in her chest. If she surrendered, maybe they would spare Daniel. Maybe they would spare her child. But she remembered the Council's cruelty. Their hatred, no. They would never spare anyone. Her bloodline was a threat, and threats were always erased. She looked at Daniel, his face sharp in the glow of the console. "You could still leave," she whispered, her voice weak. "They want me, not you, if you abandon us." "You might live?" Daniel turned to her, his eyes blazing. "Do not say that again," he growled. "I did not fight for you to walk into their hands. I did not bleed so I could run away. You are under my protection, and as long as I breathe, no one touches you or your child." Serial's throat closed with emotion, tears shining in her eyes. Her child looked at Daniel with wide admiration. In that moment, something shifted. He was no longer just the strange human who had offered kindness in the market. He was their shield, their fire, their hope. The freighter shook again, alarm screaming. But Serial felt a strange calm in her chest. Because now she knew, truly knew, they were not alone. Far behind them, in the council chamber, the cloaked figure bowed before the elders. "They run, but the net is closing," he said. The elders hissed in dark pleasure. "Good," one whispered. "Bring us the widow's blood, bring us the child, and crush the human who dares to defy us." The cloaked figure raised his head, his smile cruel. "It will be done," he promised. His eyes gleamed with hunger for the hunt, and the chase continued across the stars. The stars outside burned with war. The freighter shook as Daniel pulled it out of hyperspace, and in front of them appeared a sight that stole Sariel's breath. Dozens of enemy ships hung in the void, like hunters waiting for their prey. Their weapons glowed red. Their engines roared like angry beasts. The council had brought their full fury, and the trap was now complete. Daniel gritted his teeth, sweat running down his face. "They are blocking every path," he muttered, his hands tight on the controls. Serial clutched her child close, her heart racing with dread. "There are too many," she whispered. Daniel's jaw tightened, his voice sharp. "Then we make them remember why humans are feared." The comm system lit up, the cold voice of the council commander filling the cabin. "Widow of the rebellion," the voice said, "you carry poison in your blood. Surrender now and your child will be spared." Serial froze, her body trembling. Daniel slammed a fist against the console, his voice blazing with fury. "Lies," he spat. "They will kill you both the moment you bow." He leaned forward, his eyes locked on the enemy fleet. "If they want to fight, they will get one." The freighter rattled as the first enemy shot streaked across space. Bolts of fire struck the hull, shaking the ship hard. Sparks burst from the panels, alarms screamed. The child cried out. Clutching Serial's cloak, Daniel pulled the freighter into a sharp dive. Dodging the next barrage, the old ship groaned. Metal straining against the force, but somehow it still held. Enemy ships closed in, their claws reaching. Daniel spun the freighter, weaving through fire with desperate skill. Serial held onto her child, her eyes wide with fear, yet something burned inside her. She had lived in shadows, always running, always hiding, but now, with Daniel beside her, she felt a strange spark. Not fear, but courage. For the first time, she wanted to fight. The comm crackled again. "Human," the commander's voice sneered. "You fight for a doomed cause. Lay down your life before we tear it from you." Daniel laughed, though blood dripped from his lip. "You will never understand," he said, his voice steady. "You see a curse, but I see hope, and I will die before I let you take it." The enemy ship swarmed. Surrounding the freighter like wolves, Daniel pulled a lever, and hidden cannons on the freighter groaned awake. They were old, weak, but alive. The ship spat fire, bolts cutting through the dark. One enemy fighter exploded, scattering debris across the void. Another spun out of control. The council ships recoiled in shock. They had not expected the widow's freighter to fight back, but numbers were still against them. For every ship Daniel struck, 3 more closed in. The freighter shook. Alarms wailed. Smoke filled the cabin. Serial coughed. Covering her child's face with her cloak, Daniel wiped the blood from his forehead. His voice steady even as the ship burned. "We are not done," he growled. "Not yet!" Another blast rocked the freighter. Tearing a hole in its side, the child screamed, clinging to Serial. Daniel struggled with the controls, his hands shaking. Systems were failing, power draining. But his eyes burned with fire. He would not stop, not here, not now, then. Through the smoke, Serial saw something. A massive enemy cruiser moving forward. Its weapons glowing bright. It was the commander's ship. The heart of the fleet. If it fired, the freighter would be gone in seconds. Her blood ran cold, but Daniel saw it too, and his jaw set hard. "That's the one," he said, his voice steady. "If we take out their commander, the others will scatter." Serial's eyes widened. "But that ship is too strong," she whispered. Daniel looked at her, his face pale but fearless. "Then we make one last stand," he said. He turned to the child, his voice soft. "No matter what happens, remember this, you are not cursed. You are the future." The child's eyes filled with tears, but they nodded, brave despite the fear. Daniel pushed the freighter into a desperate charge. Engines screamed, the ship rattled, the hull tearing apart. Enemy fire lit the void, bolts streaking past like lightning. The freighter weaved through the storm, racing toward the massive cruiser. Serial held her child close, whispering prayers, tears streaming down her face. The commander's voice roared across the comm, furious. "Foolish human! You cannot win." Daniel's eyes narrowed, his hands steady on the controls. "Maybe not," he said, "but I can make you bleed." The freighter's cannons blazed, striking the cruiser's shields again and again. The ship shook, alarms screamed louder. Inside, the cabin filled with smoke and fire. Daniel coughed, blood on his lips. But he never let go of the controls. The cruiser's weapons charged, power glowing like a sun. One shot would end everything. Serial reached out, touching Daniel's arm, her voice breaking. "Why do you keep fighting for me?" she whispered. Daniel turned, his eyes soft but fierce. "Because no one else would," he said. "And because you and your child are worth more than this whole cursed fleet." The cruiser fired, light flooding the void. The freighter roared forward, its engines burning like stars, and in that final moment Daniel smiled. "Let's show them what it means to stand human," he whispered. The screen filled with fire, the cabin shook, and the world turned white. The light of the explosion faded. The freighter spun through the void, torn and burning. Smoke filled the cabin, panels sparked. Alarms screamed in every corner. Serial clutched her child, her heart pounding. For a moment she thought it was the end. But when the white light cleared, the freighter was still alive, drifting but unbroken. The enemy cruiser had not been so lucky. Its shields cracked, its hull burned, and fire spread across its decks, the mighty commander's ship. Once the pride of the Council fleet was now limping through space, the smaller ships hesitated, confused. They had seen the human charge, they had seen his madness, his defiance, and for the first time, they felt fear. Daniel slumped in his seat, blood dripping from his forehead. His hands shook on the controls, but his eyes still burned. "We are not finished," he muttered, coughing through smoke. Serial rushed to his side, her voice breaking. "You cannot keep fighting, you are bleeding too much." Daniel gave a weak smile, his voice faint but steady. "I told you, as long as I breathe, no one touches you." The child crawled closer, placing a small hand on Daniel's arm. "Please do not die," the little one whispered. Daniel's eyes softened. He placed his hand gently over theirs. "I will not. Not while you still need me," he said. But his strength was fading fast. The comm crackled again. The voice of the enemy commander filled with rage. "Human!" he roared. "You will not destroy me. Surrender the widow or all of you will burn." Daniel forced himself upright, his voice sharp like iron. "Then come and take her," he spat. The commander snarled, ordering his troops to board the freighter. Moments later, the docking clamps of the cruiser seized the broken ship. Metal screamed as enemy soldiers forced their way inside. Serial held her child, fear rising like fire in her chest. But Daniel stood, his body trembling, his weapon just a broken pipe. He faced the enemy soldiers as they stormed the cabin. One by one they entered, armored and armed. But none dared strike first because in his eyes they saw something terrifying. A man who would never bow, never yield, never stop finally. The commander himself stepped forward. a towering alien with cruel eyes and armor black as night. He sneered, pointing his blade at Sariel. "The widow belongs to us," he declared. "Her bloodline ends tonight," the child cried out, clinging tighter to their mother. But Daniel stepped between them, his voice a storm. "No," he said, "if you want her, you must go through me." The commander laughed, a sound filled with hate. "You are only human," he said. "You think you can stop destiny?" Daniel lifted the pipe, his body shaking, but his voice clear. "I am human," he said, "and that means I choose my destiny." The commander lunged, his blade flashing. Daniel blocked, the pipe ringing against metal, the cabin filled with chaos, sparks flying as they fought. Daniel's body was weak, but his will was stronger than steel. Every strike was a promise, every step was defiance. Sariel watched, her heart breaking, her hands trembling with helpless rage. Then something inside her shifted. For years she had run. For years she had hidden. But now, watching the human fight for her child, she felt fire in her veins. She stood, her voice rising, her eyes blazing. "No more!" she cried. She grabbed a broken panel from the wall, slamming it into the soldier nearest her. The child screamed but did not let go, their small hands clinging to her cloak. The soldiers froze in shock. The widow was fighting back. Daniel used the moment, striking the commander across the face. The alien roared, stumbling back. The soldiers hesitated, looking at their leader bleeding before a single human, and doubt spread through their ranks. The commander growled, raising his blade again, but Daniel stepped forward, his voice shaking yet powerful. "You rule by fear," he said, "but today, fear ends." The soldiers wavered, some lowering their weapons. The commander looked around, rage burning. "Cowards!" he shouted. "She is cursed. Kill them all!" But no one moved. They had seen too much. They had seen the widow rise, the child cling to hope, and the human stand unbroken, and something inside them cracked. Finally, one soldier dropped his weapon, then another. The commander's eyes widened in fury. "You betray me?" he roared. But it was too late. The army he commanded no longer obeyed. They turned, walking back into the cruiser. Leaving him alone, Daniel raised the pipe once more. But the commander stepped back. For the first time, fear flickered in his eyes. "You cannot stop what is coming," he spat. "Her bloodline will burn, and so will you." He fled, retreating into the shadows of his broken ship, and then the docking clamps released. The freighter drifting free once more. Silence filled the cabin, broken only by the crackle of dying sparks. Daniel dropped the pipe, falling to his knees. Sariel rushed to his side, tears streaming. "You saved us," she whispered. Daniel gave a faint smile. "No alien wanted you," he said softly, "but one human did." And with those words, his strength finally gave out. Sariel caught him, holding him close. Her child pressed against them both, whispering, "He is ours, he is family." And in that moment, Sariel knew it was true. The widow was no longer alone. The child was no longer cursed because one human had stood against the galaxy and changed everything forever.